For those of you who don't know, oh, I heard you. Do that again. No? Paula? You want to talk so I can see if I can... No. Still can't hear you. Unplug your headphones and see if that works. Yeah, that's a good idea. So anyway, it's a beautiful day here in Motueka, New Zealand. First day I felt alive in nearly a week. We've had the worst flu, possibly the worst I've ever had. I'm still only 70% okay. So today was kind of a day where it was like, actually, let's do this live and talk about some big stuff. I get 2 seconds of movement, then it stops. Well, you're not stopping my end. Is your data on as well as your Wi-Fi? See if that works. So if I'm coughing. Oh,
I can hear you.
Oh no, that's feedback.
Yeah, I just turned these off. So I'll turn them back on. But before it was just freezing.
Yeah.
Let's give it another go. See what happens.
Okay.
So,
thanks, love.
yay!
Oh,
it's
Facebook
on.
Lives, don't you love them? Yay! Now I can hear you.
Yay!
That's fantastic. Now I'm going to go and get more comfortable. Welcome, Paula. Welcome,
Hi,
everyone.
everybody. Thank goodness for that.
What Paula and I would talk. I know. It was that's a little bit of a problem. What Paula and I were talking about this morning was our progress on Happy Coffee, and as a lot of you know that you've been kind of watching my journey, and for those of you who know Paula, I've been watching her journey on Happy Coffee and the places we were in, and one of them was depression, and depression is quite a serious issue in New Zealand. For those of you who don't know, we have one of the highest suicide rates in the world. And so it's a real issue here in New Zealand, and was something Paula was talking about last night. If you want to follow Paula and have a look at her page and her lives, and she talks a little bit about depression in there, and I could really relate, Paula?
Oh yeah, big problem. And
yeah.
the more that can you hear me
yeah.
okay? Yeah. The more I look back,
yep.
you know, it was there early on. But of course, when we were young, I'm older than you, you know, it just wasn't an accepted thing that if you had any kind of mental illness, in the slightest indication, you know, you were just outcast from society. I'm on the phone, honey. And just outcast, or you went to a lunatic asylum, you know. And any show of emotion when I was a kid was met with, you know, if you don't pull yourself together, you're going to go to the mental house or the loony bin. And that's what the message I got growing up.
Yeah. And so, you know, depression is something that you can put a smiley face on, and you act like everything's fine and be the life of the party, and inside be in a really incredibly dark place, a place where, you know, we're not. So what we were talking about, and I'm kind of skipping a little bit, just a little bit, but I really want to bring it up. You know, when I had an upset on the weekend, and it really hurt, you know, something happened that really hurt my feelings, and I actually felt real sadness, okay? And I freaked out. I totally freaked out and thought, oh my God, I'm going to fall back into that horrible hole, you know, the hole of depression, that place that you don't want to go. And I remember sitting last night thinking, oh my gosh, I hope it's going to be okay. I hope I'm not going to be like this in the morning. And sure enough, I was absolutely fine this morning, and I had a really clear head considering I've been so sick as well. And I could get perspective. And for me, after watching your live, Paula, was just a huge realization about how far, not only myself have I come, but it's like that I don't stay in those places anymore. And because my hormones are all balanced, because I'm I'm doing therapy as well, and you know, I'm moving forward in that way. I don't stay in those places, but I still have to trust me. Do you know what I mean? I'm still kind of building the trust of knowing that I'm not going to fall into that hole, if you know what I mean.
That's right. And knowing that, you know, I think I use that terminology that you often feel like that chicken in that story, you know, running around thinking that the sky's going to fall, panicking. And that I just didn't have faith that tomorrow would arrive and that things would be better. You know, we tell our kids all the time, oh, you'll be okay, you'll be okay. But then when you get to a stage when you haven't got anyone saying that to you and then you're unsure, you just, you can really freak out and get a lot of anxiety from that. So that's why, yeah, I think therapy is really important, or someone you trust, to be able to sound back to you what you're saying so you can tell whether it's real or not. You know, we can get carried away and on that tangent and, you know, just get out of control. And so having that therapist, that person who's going to be your, you know, your stick in the sand so that you don't slip back is so important, so important.
Mm,
And of
yeah.
course, having that wonderful thing that we have, that we take, is was something that really made me, glued me in position to start making really good changes for myself and good decisions. Hi, Ken.
Hi,
Good
Ken.
decisions to become well, and the confidence to trust people to go with you on that.
Yeah. And yeah, it's learning to trust yourself. And I mean, the beautiful thing about Happy Coffee is no more brain fog, right? So it's like lifting yourself out of that cloud of depression. And it's amazing when it first happens. And it's amazing that when you pull yourself out and you start getting perspective on life and you start feeling really good, and you know you're managing your feelings and your hormones are all balanced, and life feels good again. You feel alive again. But you know, there does come a point, you know, I've been drinking Happy Coffee for a whole year. Through that year, I've also got therapy and done a lot of therapy stuff. And that's been really, really helpful because you do plateau, right?
Mm-hmm. You do.
Yeah. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
Sort of becomes your new normal once your hormones are in balance. You've got nothing to measure it against anymore because you've been used to functioning at that level for, say, 2 to 3 months. And, you know, you can think back to what it was like before, but it's not in your very, very close memory of how it was, if that makes sense. But you still have all those benefits that you had in the beginning of, you know, the clarity, the focus. You've still got energy to do things. I mean, I still do things that there was no way I could do before. I couldn't even walk to the letterbox. But now I'm out biking and swimming, walking on the beach. I couldn't have walked a whole length of the beach and back like, you know, a year ago. And
No.
I've still got all those benefits sitting with me. You just don't get that initial buzz that you get in the first few days of like, whoa, everything's in sync and happening. The birds are singing. That
The
just
colour.
becomes, yeah, the colour.
Colour's bright.
Yeah. And you can look at a
Yeah.
flower outside and feel joy because, and like gardening for me, I mean, I love gardening and I lost the love of gardening for a long time because I couldn't invest that hope in the future that if I did these things, these flowers or vegetables would grow, because I just didn't trust that there was going to be a tomorrow or a future. But now I
Yeah.
can see the potential for growth in
So
lots of things.
for those of you who don't know who Paula is, Paula, would you give us a little bit of just a quick overview of how life was before Happy Coffee? for you? Because you're so inspirational to me. You know,
Oh,
you're my big why.
thank you.
Yeah.
Right. Where do I start? Oh, it's hard to know where to start. Do I start from an illness? But there's just that
Yeah,
I've
you could
been,
talk about your, you know, your illness and your pain.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
And I come from a very high stress background. My genetics aren't great for depression. Um, and also there's a lot of autism and Asperger's in the family. And the sets of genes that are responsible for that also include a whole lot of other things like autoimmune issues. And, we don't, just because we have genetic markers for certain things doesn't mean to say that we have to get them, but lifestyle and how you live determines whether those genes get turned on. And I had very stressful time. I'd been studying, doing a master's degree. I was working in a high stress environment, doing advertising, getting newspapers out, and graphic design. And I just noticed myself getting more and more tired as the years went on. And people were saying, oh, that's just getting older. That's what happens. But I just didn't want to accept that. I just knew that there was something in me that wasn't quite right. And I'd changed my doctor 3 times and said, look, there's something going on. And, they're all looking at me like, you're a hypochondriac. Oh, here comes Paula again. Got something wrong with her. And finally, I hit rock bottom. I sort of got a flu, and I think that really triggered it. Um, I'd been, in the week leading up to that, my legs were just feeling like concrete, like I'd been encased in this concrete tomb. And I was trying to walk around with it on. And I couldn't get up one morning to go to work, and I rang in sick. The supervisor came and got me and took me to the doctor. And he said to me, I think there's something going on with you more than just a flu. And I thought, finally, someone's listening to me. And then the resident work doctor there, spent 2 hours with me, which was a bit of a luxury because you just wouldn't get that with a normal doctor, and ran all these tests. And she said to me, arthritis, some form of inflammatory arthritis, and it's autoimmune. Referred to a rheumatologist, and he said to me, very expensive exercise getting there, you've got psoriatic arthritis, which is like rheumatoid arthritis, except it affects a different part of the joints. And it sort of involves the musculoskeletal system, where the tendons and muscles join onto the bone. That's the part that gets affected. And I just spiraled down. That was about 2014. And I lost so much strength in my body, was so weak that I was in bed. I was bedridden. And even to push myself with my arm up off the bed, it just exhausted me. Couldn't even get up, let alone think about do anything else.
Mm.
And I mean, I carried on like that for several years until a good friend of mine, said, you need to try this thing that I've got. And she turned up on my doorstep and gave me a 3-day experience of happy coffee. And I just, from the moment that I took it, well, within 20 minutes, it was like someone had picked me up right through the top of my head like that. And I was standing up straight, and I could just see my body was light. And it sounds like a religious experience. My body was light, and I could suddenly think and focus and plan things, consequentially. It just wasn't firing off in all different tangents of what next, what do I do now? And I could get out of bed, I could go outside, I could smell the fresh air and appreciate it. And I hadn't felt like that since I was a kid. that's how quickly it worked. Just
Yep.
lifted that fog of 6 years.
6 years. It's a
Yeah,
long time. Yeah, to be that sick. And I
yeah,
mean, you went through a bit of depression because of that too, didn't you?
yeah. Well, I did, and I had postnatal depression, although it wasn't really recognised. Well, it was, but you just didn't feel safe to talk about it.
Mm.
And I probably should have been medicated, and I wasn't. Um, and then I had to have a hysterectomy at 27 because I had cervical cancer, and that whole hormonal thing just threw me right out.
Mm.
And I went on medication for major depression for about 3 years, and I was feeling, just my body was getting all these other ailments from all the other medications, all these things that just kept going wrong um, because of the medication, all the new things. My blood pressure was really high, and I made a decision, right, I'm going to go off all those drugs. And I did a big health kick, and ate really cleanly and felt a lot better. And I seemed to be right for about another 10 years. I think I was just coping because I was eating better
Yeah,
and
yeah,
and having therapy.
yeah,
So
yeah. Those things are really important. And I mean,
yeah,
when we look at Happy Coffee and how it made you feel after 6 years, and
yeah.
then for the how long have you been drinking it now?
About
Probably
but since January,
since January,
5,
yeah.
yeah,
So yeah, right. So we're going into the seventh month. We're in July. Well, in New Zealand, we're in July. So it's a
that's
huge
right.
shift, and it's quite a while. And through this time, it's I assume it's like it has for me, allowed just space to breathe, to find yourself, to get used to emotions that are normal and natural, and trust that you're not going to fall into those steps. It's not going to make you sore. It's not going to, you know,
Yeah,
um, yeah. So, wow, 7 months. It's
that's
amazing.
right. You just mentioned, about the pain within a week of taking the coffee. All that residual pain over and above the medication that I had was gone. You're right. Yeah.
Incredible. Yeah. Yeah, mine took a little bit longer. For those who don't know, I've got fibromyalgia. I still do have flare-ups. I'm not saying I'm perfect anymore. I don't think I ever will be. However, it's like 5% of my life now. And that's generally when I've got stress. Life creates stress sometimes. Sometimes you can't avoid it. So, but it's not. It took probably a month, 6 weeks for my pain to completely go.
Yeah.
Um, but it's a detox as well. So it's detoxing your body. And there's a whole lot of other issues. I was so sick, I actually thought something was seriously wrong. Like I was very, very ill. So, having the sickness this week really triggered a lot of that for me. And I suppose that's why we came into this conversation of what life's like, when you've had depression, when you've had pain, when you've had all those things, and how scary it can feel actually. Is this going to stay? Is it going to be like this forever? And
That's right.
realizing it's not. Yeah, it's not. And we're through it, and we're growing, and we're moving, and we're getting well. Um, we can't make medical claims. This is just Paula and mine experience of our own sickness that we've had individually. But yeah, it's just something we thought was really important to share with everyone.
Mm,
Um,
that's right.
oh gosh, there's so many. There's lots of people talking, but I'll let you read that afterwards, Paula. But Ken,
Oh, right. I
he's
haven't
saying
seen it.
yeah, he's saying thank you for being vulnerable, Paula. That's incredible. You can share the story. It will touch many people's lives, and
Oh,
you
thanks,
really
Ken.
have touched my life, Paula, in so many ways. And, watching your journey has just been amazing. And this is why I am so passionate about Happy Coffee. There are people like you who have, who was so sick that you wanted to end it. You had a plan, and now I see you. And last night, if for those of you should follow Paula, she does these amazing lives. She did such a funny one with all her makeup. You have to watch it. She was being a makeup expert. It's absolutely hilarious. Anyway, and I was just thinking, wow, from the stories you've told me like today to now, and then watching a live like that, having an absolute laugh, just warms my heart and is my absolute reason for doing this. And if people are sick of me going on about Happy Coffee, I make no apologies, because there's ones like you that we could be helping, and like myself, that's what it's always been about. So
That's
I
right.
appreciate you, Paula.
And there's so many people out there that are just so disillusioned with life because of what's going on with, the government, everything, with America, with what's happening there, and we don't know if we're going to have World War III on our doorstep, and no wonder kids are growing up with anxiety and depression, or whether it's always been like that and it's only just now recognised. But, we shouldn't, we're this developed country, we shouldn't be suffering these third world country problems of living in fear.
And poverty.
Yeah.
A lot of poverty in New Zealand. Yeah.
That's right.
A lot, unfortunately. So, people, we've got a housing crisis. For those of you who don't know, in New Zealand, we've got a housing crisis here. Rents are very, very high. People are homeless, sleeping in their car. That is just an absolute thing I would never have heard of as a child, ever. People being homeless. Yeah. Never seen a homeless person in my life till quite recently. So, there's a lot of pressures on people, and there's a lot of pressures on parents. They both have to work in order to, to make ends meet. This is, and I just, not only has Happy Coffee completely changed my health, but it's changed my life financially. Because the stuff works, I just want to share it, and it's created an income for me where we can be home with our boys. So, if you ever don't feel you have to go and do a 9 to 5, there's so much more options. And same with you, Paula? It's like you just share it and share it and share it, and here you are. Never thought you could have.
Well, I only signed up because I wanted to get cheaper product. But and just by people seeing the difference that it made in my life, they all wanted some of it. And I thought, well, okay. So it was only by default that's happening, and so many people now have come to me and said, hey, I want a bit of what you've got. And they're just blown away. And I can't wait till they've got the confidence for me to do lives with them. There's some amazing stories there. And if they just, a little bit longer on the product, they'll be feeling so good they just won't want to, they won't want to be quiet about it,
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, and that's amazing. I mean, to touch people's lives like that and, make such a difference. And like when you tell your story, I can relate because I was there. I can really fully relate. And I remember the first time I had the coffee, and I was like one of the first people, well, I was the first person in Motueka in my own hometown, thinking, oh my gosh, everyone needs this. How am I going to get this out there? And I was thinking of people like you, and here,
And you didn't have your coffee cart anymore.
No, I didn't. I was coffee queen, honestly, barista, and I am such a snob with coffee. It's even lucky that I tried this because it does come in a sachet form, in like an instant coffee. But all I can say to everyone out there, you know, don't worry about how it comes. It's what it does that really, you know, I don't even care. I love the taste, but some people might not like it, but it doesn't even matter. It's not about that. It's not about the taste. It's actually how it makes you feel. It's having your hormones balanced. You know, we've had people not only come out of depression, anxiety,